Welcome to the Laurent Collective podcast, where we go deeper than just surface talk.
Each week, we'll explore everything from family, business, creativity, culture, and faith.
To make sure not to miss an episode, be sure to subscribe and hop on to Instagram at Laurent Collective to chat with us about this episode.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. I'm going to apologize now. I probably sound a little weird. Have a bit of a cold going on. It's not COVID. Took the test. But I feel like I'm a little bit nasally and you may hear me sniff and possibly sneeze. So sorry for that ahead. But today we are going to chat about what it looks like to ask for help. We personally struggle in asking for help.
Definitely.
And so we thought we'd just share some things we've been processing recently with that. And this goes for personal life and for business and asking for help. So yeah, we thought we'd chat about that. So a little bit of background is that asking for help, whether it's business or whether it's personal, is hard for both of us.
Right.
Some people maybe don't have an issue with this, but for us, it's hard for multiple reasons. One of them is just our personalities.
Yep.
We've mentioned Enneagram a couple times here, but I know some people understand what we're talking about. And for me, I'm a 3. And so I like to achieve things, get things done. I mean, I do ask for help in those things, but there are certain times where I just want to put my head down, not ask for help, do it myself and get it done. So for me, it's a struggle in asking for help of like in the back of my head, I think, I should be able to do this on my own. Like I should be able to accomplish whatever this is or get to this thing and that kind of thing on my own. And so I often have to ask for help and that kind of thing, or say, actually, like, I can't do all these things. I need somebody else to step in and do this. And you struggle with it for a different reason.
Yeah, well, I guess they would classify me as a 2.
They? No, you
or
are.
It is classified as a 2. If my number doesn't technically define me.
No, it doesn't define you.
But,
Exactly.
But yeah, so I would classify myself as a 2. And for me, asking for help is more about the idea that I want to help others. I put my needs, my wants, all those things to the side and on the way back burner in a sense, because I just want to help others. I want to make sure that I look a certain way because I want to be helpful. And yeah, I think I tend to ignore how I'm feeling, how I'm dealing with things, the things that I need, because I just want to help others deal with what they need and what they're going through and things like that. So yeah.
So you can imagine this makes the perfect combination,
Right?
in our marriage and in our couple thing when we're doing something. I mean, 2 things. It affects how we deal with one another. When I might need help in something, and I'll go to the extent of exhausting myself in something, and Pat's like, you could have just asked for my help in that.
Yeah.
So we have that, and then you same way, as Pat wants to be the helper sometimes, but then he doesn't know how to ask for help, and that. So we deal with it in our relationship, but then we also deal with it, of course, outside of our relationship of, in a work setting, when it comes to personal things, all of that. And so we recently went through a thing where we were in need of money for our visa renewal here in London. And part of our work that we do here, we're on support for some of that work that we do, for the work that we do here in London and things like that. And we came to the realization that we weren't quite there of what we needed for those funds and stuff. And Pat and I spent a night, frankly, of not sleeping.
Yep.
And just thinking, we sat down and we're like, right, here are the 3 things we, meaning the 2 of us, can do to make this happen. And that kind of thing. None of them involved asking for help. It was us trying to figure out how we can make things happen. And a night of restless sleep. I mean, barely sleep.
Can you call that?
I don't think it was sleep. You're
I
right.
didn't sleep, so yeah.
Neither did I, but whatever it was, at least laying in the bed. Let's call it that if it wasn't sleep.
I was on the couch.
Yeah, you did go
just
and stand up on the couch
I
reading for a while.
I couldn't sleep.
It meant that we were kind of, I say we were fresh. We weren't fresh, but we woke up with a new thought of like, should we be asking people to help with this? Um,
Well, I think what the biggest thing is, we realized again there was no possible way within anything that we could think of or do that we were going to be able to manage this on our own. Like it
exactly.
just I mean that was like that was the biggest realization. There was just no possible way yeah, that we would be able to figure this out. We would be able to control it ourselves. And so we had to let that go. And in that thinking of letting go, we have to invite others into that. We had to let others know what was going on. One, that's just one. Like we had to let people know what was going on, and then two, we had to be open to help.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And being able to receive that help, which is still, even in
yes,
it, it's still hard for us to be like, oh, you don't need to do that, or that's too much, or whatever it may be, is in both of our natures to do that. And, whatever way that you look at things spiritually and that kind of thing, like, for us, that's we see God providing, and whatever that may be for you. But even that is still hard for us of like, oh, like we're seeing this, but oh, like, you go down this rabbit trail of, oh, we don't deserve that, or those kind of things, and just almost in many ways shaming yourself, and that kind of thing. And I think too often I think just culture tells us that, like, it totally does. Hustle, stretch yourself too thin, keep going, like, and if it gets to a certain point, then you ask for help. But like, it doesn't have to be that way. And I'm literally speaking as we have just been reminded of this lesson within this past week again. But it's just, and it was, that's why we wanted to talk about it. It's such a reminder because it's fresh on our minds right now of like, no one is asking you to get to the point of burnout. No one is asking you to, oh, like do this all on your own. Like, sure, culture may be doing that, but like the people that you have in your lives are most likely willing to like help with something, whether
yeah,
it's you're a new parent, it's your, I don't know, you have a teenager, you are starting a new career, and you're trying to find someplace to live. I mean, all these different things, I think we just take them on as burdens, like a backpack put onto us, and think like, okay, great, head down, going to figure this out, going to figure out how to make it. And you work in this like isolation almost. And that just not, I mean, it's very lonely to do that.
yeah,
But you also don't get a chance to like see how your community around you could step in.
yeah. I think in a lot of ways, I always go back to I grew up playing so many sports, and when I was growing up, and so for me, the biggest thing that I think about, and the fondest memories I have of like, you know, this type of support that can happen is being on a team. And like, everybody's got their positions that they're in charge of, but yet when you realize, okay, maybe your teammate needs this, or you know, something needs to change in order for you to get to a point where you potentially could win the game, or whatever it is, or whatever, I think for me, just seeing that type of camaraderie and that community, where if you are like, you know what, I'm really struggling today, or I'm really needing help in this today, or hey, have you seen me doing this, and is there something I could be doing differently, or whatever, like as a teammate, to be able to do that for one another, that's only going to make you better. It's only going to make all your community and the people around you better. I think, we're meant to, I really believe that we're meant to live in community with others. We're not meant to be in isolation. And so when we think that we can control all of this on our own, um, that that's just wrong. Like, that's just not the place that is going to be healthy and for you to be a place to be in. We need others. We need people around us. We need a place to share the good and the bad, the hard, the challenging, all that stuff. We need to have people around us that we can do that with, because that's only going to make us better people. And then we also can do that for others as well. And so I think, there's just something really beautiful and unique about being able to do that. And I think that was one of the biggest things that, I think we're constantly being reminded of that, but also I think it's very easy. Like Maya said, culturally we are I feel like it's over and over again where you're said like you gotta work hard, you gotta do this, you gotta hustle, you gotta bang bang bang, you gotta do everything on your own in order for you to take that next step. When actually there's plenty of ways to reach out for help to take that potentially will make that next step easier, or not easier, but at least it helps you get to that next stage, in a sense where you could just sit and go round and round and round and round and just be continued to stuck in wherever you're at if you're trying to do it on your own. So
Well, and
yeah.
I think it's because, I was just having this chat with a friend the other day about the fact that, like, again, we'll harp on social media for a minute, but what you see on social media and everything is, oh, like that person's still continuing to do it all, regardless of these things that are happening. Like, as I'm sitting here sneezing and sniffling, like the thought of, if something, let's say you were out of town or something like that, and then I was having to like go pick the kids up and kind of slightly feeling like this and stuff like that, like, there's tons of people I could text and say like, hey, would you mind picking up our kids from school? Would that be okay? Or
Yeah.
that kind of thing. But for me, I'm like, oh, there's this internal thing that goes into me of like, oh, that means like I'm saying like I'm too weak, or I'm those kind of things and that stuff. And that's the kind of stuff that just we can't let enter into the equation. And I think again, it's because of whatever, and I should say, when we're saying culture overall, but like depending what culture you are
That's
in,
true.
it even looks different. It can be more intense,
Mm-hmm.
or it could be, I feel like we've learned from a lot of people who are in cultures where like you are raising children in community. You have
Yeah.
lots of aunties and uncles and that kind of thing. And like, and then asking for help is actually not as hard, but like in Western culture, that tends to be the opposite, unfortunately, where we feel like all these things just weigh on us
Yeah, I
and
think
we've got to do these things. And then asking for that little bit of help on something, um, you know,
yeah,
is just harder.
that competitive nature really steps in, right? And like, if you're not going to push through things and work really hard on your own, you're not going to take it to the next step. And so we keep things to ourselves, because we want to one up, we want to get further, we want to do that than the other and all that stuff, when actually it's way better to invite people in and be a part of something where potentially you could lift somebody else up rather than yourself and things like that. I mean, yeah.
Well, and it's when you get stuck in something too. I think of like our son Jude, we have another son that's gone through learning. I mean, if you're a parent, you understand what I'm saying when I say this, like math should be math. It shouldn't be that different than when we learned it. And then our kids are actually learning it in a different culture, in a different school system too. So, Jude could be doing the math thing and he gets to the point where he's on it and you can see he's getting super frustrated and everything like that. And he'll just say the words, I can't figure this out. I don't know how to do this. And that's a stopping point for him. And we
Mm-hmm.
constantly are like, well, you could ask us for help or your brother for help. And
Mm-hmm.
then, like, especially when Zane steps in to help him, it changes things. And he's like, oh, like the amount of times we've heard him say after that has happened, like, oh, that wasn't as hard as I thought, or those kind of things. But for
Mm-hmm.
some reason, he already at his age, and I hope we haven't taught him that, but clearly he's picked it up from stuff of like already at his age, like he feels like I have to figure this out. Now, sure, if it's a test, you can't ask your neighbor,
Sure.
but like when he's doing homework and stuff like that, he can ask somebody for help so he understands it and that type of thing. And I think maybe it's just ingrained in us in some ways of like we've got to figure it out on our own. And we lost a whole night of sleep because we were trying to figure it out on our own. Now maybe we still would have been like, this is still uncomfortable, and I still, where there's a lot of trust involved in this, obviously.
Mm.
But instead of just saying like, I think we need to ask for help in this, I think we need to reach out and ask for help and that kind of thing. And that has happened to us so many times. It's as simple as like you feel guilty if you're like moving house
Mm-hmm.
and you need some people to come help you lift some stuff and that kind of thing. There's that part of like, well, we ask, you always want to give somebody an out, I guess, but you ask and you're like, but you don't have to if it's too much, and like all that kind of stuff, where sometimes people just, they want to do that, they
Mm-hmm.
want to help, they want to be there for you in those transition times and those kind of things, but we automatically have this assumption like, oh no, I'm asking too much. Or I do this a lot where I've asked somebody if they can help us with something, whatever it may be. And then I'm like, and then as the time gets closer, I'm like, I just wanted to double check again. Like, you really don't have to. And we have one friend that used to always like say like, no, but I offered already. I'm not retracting. Like, I already said I would help. Why are you trying to get me to get out of it now? And so even when someone has made a commitment and have asked for help, I still feel the need to like, oh, but you don't need to.
Right.
It's just kind
Or
of.
I think we sometimes get to places where we say we might need help for something. Like, for example, like you might say, oh yeah, well I need to, I need help moving at some point. But then you end up thinking, well, if I could probably just do this myself.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I know I do that a lot where I'm looking at a situation that I'm in and I could probably easily ask for help that would go either so much quicker or more efficient or just better if I include others into it. But then I go, well, this might look bad if I don't do it myself. Or, I think I can just handle it on it. And then for me, especially because I do that, I tend to do that more. Instead of inviting others in, I tend to stack on so many things that I'm helping with or that I'm doing on my own that I'm close to burnout. Like I get completely worn out and I wear myself out so thin that then I can't do anything well. So
And this goes for like if you're, obviously we are passionate about helping creative business owners and everything, and this goes for business too. That you're one person. Maybe there's two of you. I don't know what your situation is, but most likely the majority of the time it's one person running this creative business that's trying to get this creative business going and excuse me, and getting things started, but you can't do it all. So when you see somebody that's way, way, way ahead of you, and you're like, oh, well, they're posting to social media 2 times per day, and they are doing stories, and they send out a weekly newsletter, and they do all these. I'm just naming quick off the top, and somehow they're getting orders out at the same time, and they have this cute packaging. I mean, you go down this whole thing to then only realize, well, they have a VA, or they have an assistant, or they have other people doing things. And you do get to a point in your business where you have to make the decision.
right.
I think we talked about that before. Like when I have a photography business, I had to make the decision eventually to hire somebody to do the editing of the photos, or that's all I was going to spend my time doing. And I couldn't photograph any more people, or spend time with them and that kind of stuff. And so you do get to the point where you're like, oh, I need to ask for help in this.
Yeah.
And that kind of, and I think the hardest step is no matter if it's in a business, which usually if you're asking for help, you're paying somebody. So there's always a risk involved with that, an investment. And then when you ask for help in something personally as well, there's also risk in there because like you're putting yourself out there. You're saying, here's this need that I have. Can you help me somehow? And there's still, it feels risky. It feels like you're vulnerable is the word I'm looking for, I guess. And for a lot of us, like, that is the part that I struggle with sometimes of like, oh, now I'm showing you I do have this need. Again, that's because that's how I'm wired and I've grown in it so much. I mean, you could probably say that from early on our marriage compared to now. But it still occasionally for sure crops up of like, oh, but I should be able to, and I think the thing, no matter what it is, that I always am when I say something like, oh, I'm really struggling with this thing. I feel like I need help or that kind of thing. Almost always there's somebody that says to me, oh, I don't do that. I have so-and-so do this for me or that kind of thing. And then it's oh, I'm normal.
Or I think that way too.
Yes,
like, you
exactly.
know what I mean? I think that is when we do open up, when we are vulnerable in some ways in those places of weakness. I think some people would see it as weakness. That when we are open and we are vulnerable and real in those ways, either you're going to open up, an opportunity for somebody to say, me too, or actually I know this, or I know that person, or actually I can help you with that, or whatever. Like it allows, it just allows opportunity for a relationship to strengthen, to deepen, and it just creates a unique opportunity in that sense if you open yourself up like that.
And I think sometimes we learn about this in times that are not the most fun to learn about it, like when you're sick. Um, or something like that has happened. Like I remember when I injured my back really bad.
Yeah.
Like I could not even walk without Pat's help.
Yep.
And that kind of and obviously it meant I couldn't do anything else. I couldn't sit to be on my computer. I could barely sit up to like look at the phone. I mean, it was bad. Like we had to right away we had to call somebody to ask for help to get to the A&E here because I knew I couldn't walk there and I knew I couldn't even walk to the bus stop. I needed somebody to drive us. And in that moment right there, we both kind of were like, wait a minute, like I've just passed out in the hallway and we're not sure what's going on. And we both still were like, oh, but maybe we could get to the bus stop. And finally at a point like, no, we need to call somebody.
And it was at a place too where we were still like meeting people and not really knowing fully who we could really open up to, or could we ask somebody for help in that sense. And so I think again it put us in a place where we were like, how do we do this?
And this is also the thing too. I think we have learned this in the culture we are currently living in and stuff, of the idea of and it's just because British friends have shared this from us, because we've been like, I'm confused and stuff like that, why sometimes depending what culture you're from, you know, we either said, I feel like it's three ways. It's either, depending what culture you're from, asking for help is super easy because you understand what it likes to live in community and that's just normal.
Yep.
Or there's the opposite of like, you don't ask for help because then you have to return the favor. And if you don't think you're going to be able to return that favor, then you shouldn't ask for help. Like, and so there have been some of our British friends or from other cultures that something is clearly happening. You can see it and they're telling you about it. And like, well, let me help. Oh, no, we're fine. We have that figured out. Oh, no. And like, you know, they need help, but they're not willing to accept it. And then there's kind of somewhere down the middle where sometimes you float between the two, you know, that kind of thing. And so if, you know, I think it's an awareness level. It's paying attention. We're coming to you as an awareness level right here. Like it's paying attention of like, when does that roadblock come up to me of like, oh no, I can do it myself and that kind of thing. And like, are you already stretched? You actually could use help, or could have inviting someone in to help during that time. Could that actually strengthen that relationship? I think we have found that too. I mean, there's nothing we've had to have people in several instances here like unpack our house for us, and that kind of stuff because we weren't even in the country. And we've had that, and that's like, you know, that feels like a huge ask.
Yeah, it's humongous.
Or we said just do the minimum, and then we came in and they did unpack the whole house. I'm like, you guys did not have to do that, and that kind of thing, and that has had a different kind of openness and a different relationship building.
Definitely. Yeah. I think it's been, you know, at one time, again, we, like what Maya and I have been saying, this is something really hard for us to do from time to time. But I think, you know, over the last 5 years since we've moved here, you know, because we really didn't have a foundation of relationships and different things like that, we have actually really had to open up in ways that we've never had to before. Because we didn't know very many people, or we weren't in a community. A lot of times we did default and say, okay, we can handle this ourselves. We have to figure this out ourselves because we don't know anyone else. We don't know, you know, we're going to have to do this ourselves. When actually there was probably people around us at certain times when we were trying to do it ourselves that probably could have totally stepped in and helped us. And so I think because of our situation, we've definitely learned it over and over again of really opening ourselves up to asking for help, to really being vulnerable as much as we possibly can. And yeah, so I think it's been a constant learning process for sure.
And I don't think it ever stops, unfortunately. I think it will be something that each stage, you know, of your life is, and it's as simple, like I'm even thinking about like when you start a new job and you feel like, oh, they've hired me and I should know all these things and stuff like that. And often you have to ask for help because you're like, I don't know where you keep the stapler. I mean, I don't know. I'm just using that as an example. Or like, I don't know where these files are stored in the database, or how do I get to those, or those kind of things. And like, I know for me, even in those simple things that are like, this is not that big of a deal to ask these questions. I even feel myself being like, oh, I'm sorry I have to ask this question. But, and so, obviously some people struggle with that and some no, but I think we all kind of have that thing in us that it's slightly an embarrassment. It's whatever of like, I should know these things, but everything we step in, there's so many new things we step into life. Like, new parenting, a new job, moving to a new neighborhood, and you're like, I don't know where the closest grocery store is, or I can't figure out which internet's best here, or whatever it may be. It can come down to those things. To, you have a new baby and you're really struggling and you just need somebody to come and help, or like I had a moment I remember with our oldest son where I was just tired and everything like that, and I could not figure out why he wouldn't take these certain bottles when we were going to go leave. And, I spent hours trying to figure out like, well, maybe if I like were to rip the hole bigger in it and stuff like that, forgetting that people had bought me different size like nipples for the bottles, until I called a friend and said, I can't figure this out. I don't understand why he won't take this bottle for Pat so I can leave and go do whatever I was going to do. And she was like, I was at your baby shower. I think other people gave you like bigger nipples. And I was like, oh yeah, I don't have to cut the top. I have ones that are like, there's numbers on them for a reason. But I mean, just in different times and in different new stages of things, you run into roadblocks, mental roadblocks. You're tired, you're whatever it may be. There's something that you hit that you need that help for. And it is vulnerable to ask for it. But it's so good because you're allowing others. Think of how, and it's not about feeling good about helping others. Right. It's just like how you feel like, oh, that person, sees me in a different way because they have asked for my help and that kind of thing. It is a relationship building type of thing. And then, whether you get to return the favor or not, that's not the point of it. It's being more open and honest and in many ways, and this is probably why both of us struggle, in many ways saying, I am not capable of doing all of this. I do need help. And I think that is where probably a lot of us get tripped up, unfortunately, of wanting to portray ourselves of being capable to do it all. And then when we have to admit we can't and we have to ask for help for whatever reason.
Yeah, definitely.
It's really hard. We'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on this. Again, I love that we get to share this with you guys kind of in real time, of just like, we hit a wall. We were trying to do some things on ourselves and hold that burden ourselves. And then to put that out, excuse me, to our community and everything. And then the response and the way that we realized then like, wow, we have this community surrounding us, supporting us that sure, we knew that. But like, again, when you ask for help and you put vulnerability out there that you're struggling in something, you give your community an opportunity in a different way than maybe you could have before to be like, yeah, we're here for you. Yeah. And that kind of thing. Yeah. And so
we were blown away.
Yeah. So I think that just is such a reminder that the community you have surrounding you can step up in such amazing ways, but you have to tell them you need it.
Yep.
If that's what you need. They can't read between the lines and they're not in your house and stuff like that. And so they don't know if you don't say it and say, I need help with this. So yeah, we hope that's an encouragement to you if you feel like you're carrying something on your own and you need just help from somebody or anything like that, to just ask. Who knows what will happen in it and how you could possibly be absolutely blown away by it and build relationships with people in the meantime too. We'd love to hear your stories. I'd love to share some stories of the way that you have asked for help and what that has done and what that, what you've learned and what it's taught you and everything like that. We'd love to, if you want us to share some stories. If not, you can just share them with us privately. We'd like that too.
Yeah.
We'd love to hear from you guys on that. But we hope this has been helpful. And if you are really struggling something, go ask for help.
Yep.
We can say
it's so helpful if you do.
Go ask for help. It's so helpful if you do.
Yeah, it's helpful if you ask for help.
Yeah. I don't know if anyone can help me currently with this stuffy nose and this going on, but that's all right. We'll. But wonderful, so good to be with you guys today, and we will catch you next time.
See ya.
Thanks for joining us on today's episode of the Laurent Collective podcast. If you enjoyed today's podcast, be sure to subscribe and leave a review, which helps others find our podcast. Continue the conversation with us over on Instagram at Laurent Collective.
We look forward to going deeper than just surface talk with you again next week.